Hi, I'm Tulip.
And I'm Megan, and we're your direct line to the universe.
Welcome to the Calling in the Universe podcast, where we dial in to explore exactly what is happening behind the scenes. If you are mystically curious, join us in speaking on spiritual topics, philosophical life conversations, and some genuine spirit-led laughs and aha moments as we tap in and tune in together.
Now let's dial up the universe and let's get into today's topic.
Welcome back to Calling in the Universe podcast with me, myself, Tulip, and
Megan. Hello, hello.
We are so excited to be here. It's our fourth episode. As you know from the previous episodes, 4 is my favorite number because it brings stability and establishment. So we are so excited to be here. And what we're talking about today is all about symbols. And what Megan and I really wanted to intentionally talk about with Calling in the Universe is what is happening right now, as well as topics, as well as how you can bring these topics and the energies of the universe into your life. So today we're going to be speaking about a little bit about astrologically what's going on. There's some eclipses, there's some north node, south node switches, and then we're really going to be talking about symbols and sigils and how you can really bring those into your life. So I hope you're excited.
I am so excited. And, I love being able to really tap in and talk about what the current energies are. And as you mentioned, like astrology is such a great way to do that. As above, so below. What's going on in the stars does affect us. It affects our energy, our gravitational flow. So we are going into eclipse seasons. Now, don't panic. Everybody's like, oh, eclipse season. We have them. We have eclipse seasons twice a year, sometimes 3 times a year. That's more rare. But what is eclipse season? And so it's a very heightened time of year. And eclipses always, we have a solar eclipse and we have a lunar eclipse. And just generally speaking, so eclipses are a very heightened time. They're intense. And the energy that eclipses carry is death and rebirth, i.e. transformation. So when we're in the eclipses, we're usually stuff is coming up. Things are coming to our awareness. Buttons are being pushed. All of that kind of thing to bring our awareness to what that needs to be transformed. Now, this will happen for you personally, but this also plays out universally. For example, we have the solar eclipse in Leo on the 12th of this month. And it's interesting because we have this big, bright Leo solar eclipse happening. And also we've got a lot of Leo energy. You're going to talk a little bit about South Node is now in Leo. We've talked about big Jupiter energy in Leo and other planets in Leo. So this feels very like big Leo energy. And Leo energy is about creativity and self-expression and being unique. And remember, Leo rules the heart. And so it's about really what's in your heart. What do you want to express from that deeper place in your heart? And here comes the eclipse. So those energies may come up for you about, am I being seen? Am I being valued? These are Leo issues like, do I deserve to show my light? Does my creativity, my self-expression have a place in the world? So kind of expect some of those energies are going to come up around the eclipse. And a good way to work with eclipse energy, and I'll be curious to know what you think about how you work with eclipses, is I just feel like slow and steady wins the day. Not being overly sensitive or overly reactionary. Giving yourself a pause, the step back and go, okay, things are coming up. How do I want to engage with this? What do I really want to do with it? And the thing about eclipses is the energy is eclipsed. So you may not have that complete clarity in the moment of like, I'm being triggered and now I need to do this. It may be more like, I'm being triggered and I have no idea what to do with it. So I'm just going to be with the energy, let the energy kind of move through me and see what's there for me. You're smiling, Tulip. So What are you thinking here?
I'm so glad that you said all of this because I honestly look forward to these podcast recordings because I'm like, I need Megan to tell me what's
Oh.
happening in the astro because I'm moving right now. As we
Yep.
announced on my last episode, I got my dream home, which is so exciting. But I cannot tell you, I have had this like wrath, this anger, this roar
Mm.
inside of me. And I'm like, what is happening? Like, I don't even know where it's coming from. No one's like, consciously like upsetting me. I mean, I have a very disorganized home and there's a lot of instability in my life at this exact moment. But what surprised me the most was this inside like passion and roar that just I wanted to like,
Mm.
burn something off. And so then I
Mm.
was like telling a friend this, and she was like, it's eclipse season. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't have to understand what's happening. I just have to like express myself, not burn other people or burn it up, but
No.
like channel it and try to understand that there's actually just some form of expression that it's coming through. Is that how I'm understanding it?
Yeah, and I would just add that oftentimes, sometimes the first place that we get to these energies is with anger. Now, I don't think anger is a
Ooh.
bad thing. I think that healthy anger is a beautiful thing. Anger is action. Anger creates boundaries. Anger moves energy. And so, for you to feel this like, ah, this anger, it's the doorway into those deeper emotions, and to really, listen to them. I also think it's very interesting that you chose to move on an eclipse. You know what I mean? But I think unconsciously, because moving's a big deal. Moving changes, transforms energy, right? So, I often find that we unconsciously, I'm doing my air fingers here, but unconsciously, um, create things or plan things, or things just happen on eclipses so that we are more aware of the energy. And it kind of sounds like that's what's happening here.
And I must say, like, this is for all the spiritual, seekers and curious people. It's like I had a little bit of guilt. I'm not gonna lie. Like
Oh,
I was like
wow.
Lionsgate. It fell on that date, the 8/8 portal,
Right.
which I was so excited. And I did my little ritual of opening the door for the very first time to move in and be like, I'm stepping through this portal into my new timeline, into my new self, which we kind of talked about last episode. But then when I, over the last couple of days, like feeling so much wrath and anger and, where I
Mm.
don't even understand where it's coming from, I was like, am I screwing up my 8/8 portal, like
Oh,
energies and my
wow.
manifestations? So
Wow.
it's just and that's not true. First of all, we're
No.
not screwing it
No,
up.
no,
It's
no, no,
part of the
no, no.
alchemization. It has to burn off
Yes.
for me to fully step into,
Yes.
the new calibration that I'm going through. But the reason why I bring this up is because it's so wonderful to have these conversations about astrology because it does make sense. It does make you feel a little less insane or
Cuckoo?
crazy. And
Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs?
at least for
Yeah,
me.
yeah, and I think anger is just it's calling your attention to things, and I also think moving is a big deal. It is. Moving's a big deal. So we have another, let me talk about the other eclipse. And then I want to
Yes.
hear
Oh
your
my God, there's
take on them.
two?
Oh, they always come in pairs. Yes.
Ah,
Eclipse. That's why we call it eclipse season, right? Because it's not one eclipse. It's two eclipses because we have a sun and we have a moon. The other thing before we get to the lunar eclipse, I just want to say, solar eclipses tend to be more visible because it's solar energy, and solar is male, it's dynasties, it's Leo, the kings and queens. So in addition to the personal transformation that might be happening for us individually, watch how this plays out on the global screen. Now, I'm not going to mention names or anything like that, but eclipses the fall of king and queens. You know what I mean? So power, where power is coming through, who's ruling the day. We might see this play out more than usual on the universal stage. So that's something to think about too. But
I
yes,
have my popcorn ready.
right. Yeah. Yeah. So eclipses do come in two. So then we have the lunar eclipse, and that is on the 28th, and it's in Pisces. And anytime we
Ooh.
look at eclipses, it's always great to look at the polarity. So the polarity for Pisces is Virgo. And so it brings in that Pisces Virgo axis. And I call that the healing axis, right? Both
Mm.
Pisces and Virgo are signs representing healing. Virgo's more earth healing, Mother Nature, Gaia, and Pisces is more spiritual healing. So Pisces is about spirituality and compassion, and Pisces rules the divine and the imagination and fantasy. And so on this eclipse, the Pisces eclipse on the 28th, it's a really good time to be looking at, are my dreams coming through? What is my fantasy? Does my fantasy serve me? Am I too much off in Pisces rose-colored glasses la la land? And that is the balance with Virgo, right? So that'll be at the end of the month, a time to really look at, is your imagination serving you? Are your dreams and your fantasies grounded in reality? And with the eclipse, it might bring things up about that. And with the healing polarity, it also might give you an opportunity to understand healing from more of a natural or holistic perspective. So whatever's coming up might give you more information about what you need to do for yourself health-wise to heal.
And you should listen to Total Eclipse of the Heart.
You know what? I got to tell you, I played that this weekend. You must be like weirdly psychic. And I was just like, I need some music where I can, kind of like what you were feeling. Maybe it wasn't so much anger, but it was just like, I need to like total eclipse of the, whatever. I can't sing, but I did. Yeah. I needed one of those moments, right? So I was actually dancing around my living room listening to that.
Oh my
True
gosh, I wish I could have been a
confession.
fly on the
True
wall. I gotta
confession. I
see
should have
that.
called you. Yeah. And I felt so good afterwards. I like shook it off, shook it out. Okay, Tulip, tell us about the North and South Node. What's happening there?
So this is something that's kind of an 18-month cycle. So it's a little bit longer. So I love that you talked about the eclipses because it's like happening in the now. And this is
Yeah.
kind of like the backdrop or the stage set, if you will. And we have just entered into an Aquarius North Node. So when I think of North Node, I think of North Star. It's like our
Yeah.
karmic way
Yeah.
that we are moving into. It's kind of like the guiding light. And
Mm.
that's now in Aquarius season. And Aquarius, it's so funny that the eclipse is in Pisces or the lunar eclipse is in Pisces because I'm a Pisces sun. And then I'm also an Aquarius rising. And so this is so
Right.
maybe no wonder things are getting shaken up. But
Yeah.
and you're a Pisces, you're a
Definitely.
Pisces moon, right?
Definitely. Mm-hmm.
But so if you have Aquarius and Pisces in your chart, this is definitely going to be something that's big that you might feel a little bit more amplified. But Aquarius is our North Node. So as a society right now, we are moving towards the shift of a we and
Mm.
humanity. And how can we align technology with our like coming forth and helping humanity and the we instead of the I. Because as you had talked about that Pisces and Virgo axes, the opposite signs of the zodiac wheel. So if you look at a zodiac wheel, you'll see what's opposing it. And so our south node, obviously north is one side, south the other side. Our south node is going to be in Leo. And this is what we're moving away from. This is something that's now coming into our karmic past, our past life as a society in the evolution of life. And Leo, as we know, and we've been talking about, is like that self-expression and that me, like what makes me, what makes me big, what makes me feel expressed creatively. And we, I think, are moving from a society of I and me into a we. That's what I think the 18-month cycle
Yeah.
is. And the last time we
Yeah.
had this cycle as a society was in 2007 to 2009, which if anyone knows, kind of where they were at, that was a very significant time for me. At least I graduated from college. I went
Yeah.
from a me world to now I'm entering to the we world, of corporate life. So you can think
Yeah.
about,
Yeah.
where were you? Do you know? Do you remember?
I'm so glad you're bringing this up. I am having a flashback. 2007 is when I published my first book, and I got my first agent. And I remember it was just like, the most exciting thing that ever had happened to me. Right. So that's so interesting. And that's a cool thing to put out there. I think, Tulip, to look back where you were at, 2007, 2008.
And you were taking all the information that was in your brain, right? And giving it to the we, to the collective.
Yeah. 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 Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's so cool. So with this we and collectiveness, I think this is a beautiful segue into symbols, because symbols speak to the we, which I think is like the subconscious mind. If we kind of talked about the backdrop of what the North Node, South Node kind of on that stage level, I think symbols, I mean, even look behind both of us. We both have things behind us. And every single thing that's in our life, they say, at least this is what I think, is an altar. It's a symbol. There's something that's giving us information, whether it's conscious, but it's on a subconscious level. It's speaking to our nervous system. Are we feeling safe? Does that make me feel calm? Does that make me feel activated? So what's your take on symbology?
Yeah, it's such a fascinating subject. And perhaps like you, Tulip, really came into symbols through understanding the tarot. And because, the tarot speaks it's a language of pictures. And so all the information of the tarot is, given through pictures and images and symbols and archetypes, right? And I believe that, with the tarot and the symbology, a lot of that information had to be put out there in symbols, because at the time, real knowledge had to go underground. The real, knowledge and wisdom that we all have was being co-opted or persecuted by the church or the government or whoever was in power. And so those symbols were able to portray information and wisdom without words, right? And so, like, I think, what do they say? A picture paints 1,000 words. And I think, so to me, those symbols are connecting us to language, to information, to wisdom. And when I was first studying the tarot, I studied the Kabbalah. And the Kabbalah is so into symbols, and, the Hebrew language, each of the letters is a symbol, and each, tree on the tree of life has a symbol. And they talk about in the Kabbalah that those symbols are alive. They're living, vital, breathing. I don't know if they breathe, but they're living entities. And then when you connect into that vibration, you're connecting into an actual like entity, right?
So with that, I think with like the frequency and the aliveness, it's like the more that the symbols get, let's say, collective attention, like I feel like they do grow bigger. They have more breath. Yeah. So if we really think of them as like these symbols are entities of energy that can be passed on, that's the beautiful part, how you brought up tarot and how it went underground. I didn't really think of it that way, because that myth that goes around that you cannot buy your own tarot deck, that comes from some symbology, because they said without using the cards, with like really understanding the meaning or the esotericness and the symbology and the spiritualism, that deck can be yielded in many different ways. And so they didn't have guidebooks back then. Now you can buy your own deck. You can buy Megan and I's deck. No, sure.
Right. Yes.
But they come with a guidebook, so you won't be like yielded in a different way. You can use the energy in the way that it's supposed to, entail. But besides that, with symbology, I love the tarot because it has so many different, it has some Egyptian symbology. You said Kabbalah, it has Judaism, it has Islam. It has so many. It's not one religion. It's the symbology of lifetimes and centuries put into 78 cards.
Yeah. I love that you're bringing up, as here we are talking about symbols, and you're bringing up intentionality, which I think is so, so important. Because if we're really looking at symbols or actual alive forces that you are engaging with, it would make sense, like in any esoteric art, anytime that you're connecting to the invisible world, as we've talked about, or different realms, and tarot is a porthole. Symbols are a porthole to other realms. You want to be intentional about it, right? So what you're saying, it really makes sense. And then I'm thinking, like, think about that symbols are everywhere. Think about the symbols on a dollar bill. You know what I mean? Think about the symbols that just we take for granted that are everywhere. And so maybe there's something about being more aware, of where symbols are, and, and how you are connecting into them, and what wisdom or information is there in different ways, or even like maybe being like, that's a symbol I really don't want to be connecting with, right? Because you brought up at the beginning of our conversation today about sigils in relation to symbols. Okay, so bring that in.
So, okay. So when we're manifesting, this is like such a powerful, powerful tool, is symbols, because what we just talked about, symbology, our mind speaks in symbols. Our subconscious speaks in symbols. What that means is that it goes straight past our conscious executive mind. It goes straight to the root of the energy that we respond with. And so we can use symbols that we already know. So for instance, one of my favorite ones is a spiral, but we'll go into that in a second. But the reason why I love a spiral is because the meaning that I've made with that symbol. So if you want to create something in your life, you can create a sigil, which is your own symbol, it creates its own meaning that you infuse with it. And so you can make a medicine wheel, you can put that symbol all around where you get ready in the morning on your mirror, because then you're allowing it, like we were talking about with the breath, you're allowing it to breathe, you're allowing it to grow. So it's really calling it into your life, that energy or that manifestation that you want.
Yeah.
How you can create a sigil is there's a few different ways. I don't know if you have a favorite way that you want to say.
No. No, keep talking. I love this.
Okay. So I have like a witches group here in San Francisco that we meet, and we'll make sigils with each other, which is really fun. But basically, you want to start with your intention. If you haven't learned one thing from Calling in the Universe podcast, it's about, we got to start with the intention of something. And so the intention, it's like a commitment. It's a wording that is not I want, I need, I must. It's actually a commitment of I am, or it already is in my life. So you start with that energy. So for instance, mine is confidence. I am confident. Then you want to write that out, and you remove all of the vowels. So you keep with all of the consonants for your sigils. And so some people can then make a symbol through all of those consonants and kind of make it fun, where you can kind of like see, where the C can make an O. So if you have an O, it's also a C. So you can make a symbol that way. Or some people use the numerics of the consonants. So A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4. You can use it as numbers and make a sigil out of numbers. Or you can make 1 through 9 in I hope I'm not going too fast, but if you put the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 around in a circle, and then you use the consonants, okay, that's a C is a 3, and then I go to an O, which is I'm not a math person, but let's just say 18. Then I can go and make a 1 and an 8. And so then you get your own symbology, and then you can use that symbol. The sigil is for you to create the power and the energy and the investment.
I love that. And I think, first of all, just going through, and I have done that before, and it's been really I have. It's been interesting and powerful. I actually learned about this through a book on spell casting. I don't know. I'm doing a lot of air quotes today, but because what you're talking about in ancient days was really magic. Magic really is intention and commitment and discipline. If you think about the magician card of the tarot, the manifester, who's the one as above, so below, the way his magic works through that attention, the commitment, and the discipline. I mean, it takes discipline to create a sigil. You know what I mean? It takes commitment. It takes all of those things. And
And
in that
alignment.
process, alignment, hopefully, that's the key, right? Because you want to make sure everything is aligned with your highest and greatest good. But this is a form of manifestation, and it's a reminder that where we put our attention, what we commit to, bringing in something that can hold that energy, that's how manifestation happens, right? And symbols are so great for that. And one of the symbols I really love is the triangle. Now I want to talk to you about the spiral, but because you challenged me a little bit on this when we talked before off air about, Megan, what's your favorite symbol? And I had to think, right? But I do love a triangle. And to me, I like the balance of it. I also think of, the Trinity, whether that's the sun, moon, and stars, or what did they say? Father, Son, Holy Ghost in traditional religion. Or, you think about a pyramid, and that the point of the triangle is pointing upwards and bringing down that energy. And I also love, it's not just two, it's three. So two comes, one and one come together, two, and we get three. To me, there's something very creative. Three is such a creative number. It's the Empress card in the tarot, which is giving birth and creativity and giving and receiving love. So I love a triangle. And also in astrology, astrology so much is based on geometry and the aspects, between the signs, and they form triangles and, squares and conjunctions and all these things, right? So I believe that symbols are also really connected into like geometry and math.
And are triangles kind of like balance as well?
Yep. I would think so. Yeah. Grounded. I feel like
Grounded
the
balance.
bottom of the triangle grounds it. And I feel like it's just a really positive symbol to work with.
Yeah. And speaking of that, it's reminding me of my tattoo. And I know that this is
Oh,
a
wow.
podcast and people can't really see it, but if you're watching on YouTube, there's these 3 lines. These are runes, which are the Viking symbology that they used to carve on rocks, and it would tell the next ship that came through what happened at that space. And I'm Finnish, so I feel like I'm a little Viking, but
Yes.
this symbol is friendship, because it's you, it's me, and a we together. And so I
Yeah.
loved kind of like that symbology of the triangle as well, because I do think of it as all parts have to be put into balance or with each other.
Yeah. That's so interesting about the Vikings. And when you think about like the Egyptians and hieroglyphics, and how symbols are like the first language, to some degree. So whether it's a triangle or a picture of a bird, or, all of these things are again giving information or opening up information for you. No, I was just going to ask you about the spiral for you.
Okay, I'll talk about the spiral in a second. I'm keeping you guys teased on the spiral for a second, but with tarot, I think what you were just talking about, how the symbols just show so many meanings. That's why I think the tarot is so powerful as well, because you don't really have to know the meaning of the card to just look at the symbols and the vibe to get your kind of soul and subconscious knowing, ooh, this is what this card is telling me. This is what I'm intuitively picking up. I love that symbols can.
Yeah.
Can
And I'm glad you brought up intuition, right? So, if you're wanting to like have a symbol speak to you, you know what I mean? Or, you've got to, like you said, they stimulate the unconscious. So they bypass the conscious mind. So this is basically what we're talking about. Connecting into symbols is an intuitive process. To be able to really get in there. It's not a thinking, it's allowing that deeper self to connect in.
Yeah, and symbols don't even have to be just drawings. Like, for instance,
Right.
I saw a wolf on a truck the other day, like on the
Yes.
door, and I was like, ooh, that's a
Yep.
symbol that I needed to see today.
Yes, absolutely. Or, the swan swimming in the pond. I mean, the swan symbol is a symbol of something, it represents something.
Totally. So I love your triangle, and I feel like that's an amazing favorite symbol. And so mine is the spiral. And it just has come up in many different times in my life. But to me, what the spiral represents is evolution.
Yeah.
And you have gone through something, let's say, and you think you're on the other side of it, and then it comes back around like a spiral does. But every time it does come back around, you're different because you're the
Mhm.
spiral. So a different part of you is meeting that thing again, or that energy, that entity. And so it's like, I just love the evolution of the spiral. And then
Mm.
I shout out to one of my favorite tarot readers on YouTube. She had told me also, so that was like the way that I thought about spirals for a long time. And then it just got deeper in the meaning and the symbolism to me when she said, it's kind of like circling the drain. Like whatever's meant for you from the universe is waiting until that opening of your spiral to come back into
Mm.
your life. And so I was like,
Mm.
wow, the spiral has so many various meanings. And even nature grows in a spiral with flowers, with growth. And so I just think we can utilize that symbolism in so many different ways.
Yeah, that's so interesting to be talking about during eclipse season, the
Ooh.
spiral. Because when you think about it, I think the whole point of eclipse is to help us evolve. And, in esoteric astrology, they are considered karmic releases. So,
Ooh.
yeah. So as you're talking about this, like, what's the evolution of it? And it's interesting. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and we were talking about that she was in this new relationship, and some repeating patterns were coming up, but they were coming up on a whole different level. And I
Ooh.
was like, that's like the spiral. So you're going to pull in maybe the same theme, but you're going to engage with this theme, on a whole different level, a more evolved level. It's not that there's anything bad happening, that this is coming up again. It's the opportunity to take it to a whole nother level. So that
Ooh.
just that whole transformative, evolving energy of the spiral, I love that. And I also think it relates to, in like the medicine wheel cards, they talk about the spiral as a sacred dance, and they connect it with grouse energy. I know this because I pulled it the other day. Talk about synchronicity. And they were talking about, just like you're talking about, like the nature has its cycles and the movement. And you think about whirling dervishes, of being in that whirling, twirling spiral, and to move with it.
And that's the dance. I think
That's
that
the
is the dance.
dance,
That's the
baby.
dance of
Yeah.
life.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes,
Wow.
indeed.
We're forever morphing.
Forever morphing. So what would you tell our listeners, Tulip, if they really want to, like, connect into symbols, like, just to, like, pay more attention, or what message would you give our listeners on this?
I love that question because I think it starts out with opening our eyes to awareness around what's going on. Because the spiral, I was just thinking of a snail and like watching how a snail is
Mm.
kind of finding its way and kind of leaving its own trace. And so you can just start to see the symbology in an orchid blooming and how it kind of looks like a woman's womb. And like there's just different, like, let the universe speak through you and to you through some of these symbols that cross your path. That's how I would start.
I love that. I think that's so perfect. And, maybe to go into it without an agenda, to,
Yeah.
go, or maybe your agenda is, I'm going to be open to really paying attention and receiving, from the symbols that really are going to grab my imagination or grab my attentions. And then maybe add an extra layer in there and journal about it. Take the time and energy, like we talked about in our last episode, in Spirit Guides and Angels, is about the relationship. It's about engaging. So you see that symbol, and if it really speaks to you, take the time to go home. Or I was just imagining myself walking through the gardens that are around where I live and looking at the flowers and the symbols there. So that's why I think about going home and writing. But write down what you saw, what it meant to you, what it had to say to you, and then sit with it for a few days and just let it unfold a little bit.
Totally, because the metaphor and the meaning of the
Mm.
symbology or the
Yep.
symbol is what makes you in right relation with it and makes it breathe and come alive, as we
Mm.
said. So I think that that's an amazing first step. And if somebody wants to make a sigil as well, I think that is, I mean, you can look it up on the internet, but it's really quite easy. You just start with a really strong intention and take out the vowels and start to play with what letters are left. And
Yeah.
I had made actually a sigil for buying a new home during
Mm.
October of last year when I led my first retreat. And I wrote it with Sharpie on a rock, and it's on my mantle in
Oh
Tahoe.
my gosh, Tulip.
And yeah, and so I'm like ready
Wow.
to bring it home into my new home next time I go to Tahoe. And so these sigils are so sacred. They become a sacred
Mm.
item wherever you write them and have them. And when you're ready to let go of them or they've come to life, you can bury it or you
Mm.
can keep it. But I would always just say, treasure it because it's alive.
Wow, that is so powerful. So powerful. I love our conversations. Thank you so, so much. And I just want to remind everybody that they can connect with both Tulip and I through our website or individually. For me, meganskinner.com, Tulip at tulipmagic.com. And we just really appreciate hearing from you. If you have any ideas, if you have any suggestions and things you want to hear about, let us know. And also, do you want to also, what do you call that? Tease our next show? Okay.
I need to call up the universe and ask them what they want us to talk about next. And ring ring. Oh, it's channeling. I find that
Yes.
such a beautiful segue from symbols because through symbols we channel the meanings and the metaphors. So we are going to go through how we channel through our readings, how we channel through our dreams. And what a beautiful conversation. I'm getting full body goosebumps. Thank you, universe, for that next topic. And we will see you in 2 Tuesdays from now.
That wraps up another episode of Calling in the Universe. We want to thank our producer, Nick Patry, and also you for listening. We love building community with you.
Drop us a line with a question or a topic you'd like us to talk about. Leave us a message on callingintheuniverse.studio or email us at callingintheuniverse@gmail.com. We love to hear from you.